Hi everyone, welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I've got a sweet card for you today using the Sweetest Thing Bundle. That would be the stamp set with the coordinating dies. And you're going to be surprised at how little stamping we're going to use because the coordinating designer series paper actually is die cut from the framelits. I'm excited to give you some tips on using them as we go through the process of making this card. If you're here from YouTube, you'll find a link down in the video description below that's going to navigate you over to the pictures and the cutting dimensions for today's project. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started. Here's a close-up of the card we're going to be creating. Isn't this cute? And yes, that is from the designer series paper. The designer series paper is called How Sweet It Is. And you'll find that here in the Occasions catalog. There's an entire suite of products, so you'll see the designer series papers here. Beautiful, lots of fun. One side is a little bit more generic with some stripes and dots and some candy pieces, and the other's a little bit more bold. The stamp set is also part of the suite, and it's called Sweetest Things, and that's where my greeting is coming from today. And let's not miss those amazing framelits. It's called the Jar of Sweets. I've pulled out a couple pieces that we're going to be using, but you can purchase these as a bundle, and a bundle saves you 10% on both products together. If you prefer to buy them separately, they are offered that way as well. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you're interested in receiving a copy of the Occasions catalog and or the annual catalog, I'd be happy to send you a complimentary one. Just leave me a comment below. And I'll also be sure to include Stampin' Up's Celebration Sale Brochure. The 13 products in this catalog are free, 11 of which are free with a $50 product purchase before shipping and tax, and the other 2 are for those of you with a larger wish list. They are redeemable with a $100 order before shipping and tax. I've got my Big Shot die cutting machine here, and I'll be using my magnetic platform. I'm just a big fan of that when I'm using my metal dies. It helps hold them in place. I'm going to put a clear cutting mat on the bottom to protect it. And I'm going to bring that designer series paper back in. The way the pattern paper was made is there's ample room between this row and the next all the way through the paper so that you can get a lot of images from here. There's very little waste. I'll start with this jar here on the end and I'll line that up, and you're going to see that it has a beautiful white border all the way around it. Do you see too how my framelit is slipping just a little bit? That's from the magnetic field of the plate underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up where I want it, and here is a great tip for you. Grab yourself a little Post-it note. These little Post-it note flags really save me quite a bit here in the Stamp Studio, and I'll anchor that in place where I want it, and then I'll put another clear mat over the top, and we'll crank that through. I'll remove that Post-it note, and then you're going to see here that we've got our image. This time, if you prefer, you can die cut them all at once. So I'm going to lay this one here, and I'll line up the other one next to it. The designer series paper is designed perfectly to give you ample room between the images so that you can die cut them all at once if you prefer that. Another clear mat over the top, and we'll crank those through as well. I'm going to be building my card on a layer of Whisper White cardstock. This measures 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to use some designer series paper. This is from that How Sweet It Is designer series paper stack. So I've got just a small sliver here. It's about a 1/2 inch by 4. I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet. Love this in my stamp room because adhesive will not stick to it. It simply rubs right off. It works great, and just like that for liquid glue and hot glue as well. Then I cut a piece of Pineapple Punch designer series paper. This is from the 2018-2020 in color designer series paper stack, and you're going to see that it is double-sided. All I'm going to do is I'm going to border the striped along the edge of this paper here. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive along that edge. I'm going to line up my striped pattern. I'm going to give myself just a small edge of color. I'm going to add one of the pearlized doilies. Now one side has a pearl finish and the other side is white, so you've got lots of options here. These can be colored by applying ink with a sponge dauber or a sponge, and you can even spritz these with the Stampin' Spritzer with some ink refill. I only need half of this, so I'm going to reach for my paper snips and I'm going to cut that in half. I like to cheat and just use that little line right here in the doily to make sure that I get it fairly straight. I can save the other half for another project. This doily is going to go underneath this area here. So I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the back side. And I chose to use the pearl side up. I've cut myself a small piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to be using the Coastal Cabana ink. This is the ink color that coordinates with the designer series paper. There's no guesswork. If you're ever wondering what colors go together, they're all listed in the catalog. It's a great resource as well as a lot of inspiration. I've pulled out the happy birthday, so I'll go ahead and ink that up, and I'll stamp that here. I want a banner tip on this side of my cardstock, and you can certainly do that with your scissors. I'm just going to simulate how to do that, but I'm also going to show you a great hack using a punch. You would cut a slit in the center of the cardstock, and then from the outside corner to the top of the slit on both sides will give you that perfect banner tip. But if you have the tailored tag punch, it's even easier yet. This area right here is going to give you the perfect banner tip, and I love this punch simply because you can see how wide those banners can be made. So I'm going to slide this in. I'm going to look for just a little bit of cardstock, looking for it to be as visually up the center as possible, and then I'll punch. We're going to go ahead and we're going to adhere the designer series paper. I'll flip that over and we're going to add some adhesive to the edges. And that's going to go across here. I'm looking to make sure that my doily is going to fit within the circumference of my card, and then I'll just press that in place. I don't care how careful I am in cutting, but every once in a while I'm off by just a smidgen here. So I want to give you a tip about that. Use the edge of your cardstock as a guide to trim away any excess. I keep a pair of scissors here in the stamp studio that have a little red ribbon on them. This indicates I can use them on some sticky things. I don't have to worry about gunking up the good ones. So using that as a guide, I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to trim away that excess so that the card looks symmetrical from the front. I'm going to move over now to the base of my card. I have already scored this in half before you joined me. This is 4 1/4 by 11. I'm going to take my bone folder and make a nice crisp crease on the edge there. And then this is going to get mounted here. Now I chose to use dimensionals to give this a little bit of elevation. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those off. I'm going to put one in each of my 4 corners. I'm also going to make sure that I elevate the sides. The Mayometer can do a real number on our handmade cards because they do go through the rolling system in the meter. So I want to make sure that my dimensionals are well and balanced so that my card comes out looking like I created it when it gets to the receiver. And then this is going to get adhered here. I'm leaving a small white border all the way around. And now we can go ahead and add our jars and our banner. I like to place them out first just to get an idea where I want them to make sure I've got them all fitting. I know I want my larger jar in the back, and the elevation of these jars can be slightly different just for some visual interest. And then my banner, of course, is going to go tucked underneath here. I'm going to start with the larger jar, and I'm going to add adhesive on the back side. Again, using my silicone craft sheet so I don't get adhesive on my work surface. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the back side, and then I'm going to mount that here. I'm going to go over to the next jar, and I'm going to flip that over because I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back. And again, just like the base of my card, I'm trying to make sure that I'm providing balanced coverage. Down here where it's really thin, I want to give you a tip. Back with those sticky scissors, you can cut up your dimensionals right on the paper backing like I have here, and then you've got smaller pieces that you can use. We also sell mini dimensionals that are absolutely fabulous. They are pre-cut and ready to use. I'll just take off those paper backings, and then here on the left side I'll go ahead and mount my jar. I'm going to move this one a little bit lower to the bottom, making sure that it stays within the circumference of the card. And then last we've got this image here, but we've got to squeeze that banner in. So I want to make sure that it's going to fit and I get an idea on placement. So I'll flip that over. I'll add a little bit of adhesive to the back, and then I'll mount that where I want it. Now I can add dimensionals to the back side of this image. And then we're going to add this here. I'm being careful now to make sure that I've got the raw end of my banner covered by placing my jar there. So I'm going to slide this over just a little bit more. That'll allow this one to show through, and then I'll tack that in place. My last step is I wanted to add a little bit of sequence, a little bit of color here at the top. And I chose to use the Gingham Gala adhesive backed sequence. Now you get 5 colors in the package. They coordinate beautifully with this suite as well. So I've chosen the daffodil, which coordinates really well with the pineapple because of the iridescent look. And I've also have the iridescent white ones. They already have glue dots on the back, so I'm going to use my Take Your Pick pickup tool. I absolutely love this tool. This end has a putty tip to help me pick up loose sequins and small pieces of cardstock. It also comes with a refill for this, which just simply screws on and off. This side has interchangeable tips. Do you see the lock and unlock mechanism here? So this can slide out, and there's a little spatula to get up underneath some of those little mistakes that we've put adhesives on and lift those. And I've got the paper piercing tool here. There's also a dual-sided stylus tool that comes with this product, and for $10, you cannot beat it. I'm going to start with the daffodil sequins first. And again, like I said, they already have glue dots on the back, which makes them really easy to use. I'll place one down here, and I'm going to place another one up here. And I'm going to switch now to the iridescent ones. And I'll place that one up a little bit closer to the top. So I've got a little bit of change in color along the way, but it works really well with the jars. I wanted to point out too, if you didn't notice that these also come with little flower shapes as well as regular sequin shapes. So here's the card we created together today and the card I created before you joined me. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so by clicking the subscribe button below. And while you're there, click the little bell icon that's next to it. That will give you notifications of when I'm live here on YouTube as well as when I upload a new video. If you've enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up, which means you like it. It makes YouTube and I very happy. I'm so glad you joined me today, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.